still playing a role, but this is not the main buying decision factor.
Is that globally or pretty typical for Asia?
No, that's not in Asia. That's based on surveys that we've been running in Europe, in the US, and in Japan, because in Japan it's not in top 5 neither.
Right. Thank you.
I have Nixon, and I have written in Tesla. Okay, so my question is, I heard that the replacement cost of a battery is very enormous. So the question is it economical if you have to really replace the battery? Number two is that, what is the problem with recharge stations in Thailand? If you reduce EV, well, do you have a problem with the coordination of recharge stations? And the third thing is that, do you have plans to reduce EVs in Thailand?
So I'll go one by one. On the battery, this is the highest cost in a car. So if you look at every element, the battery is by far the biggest cost. If you need to replace the battery, this would have a significant impact. That's clear. Now, if we take an average retention period between 5 to 6 years, you don't need to change the battery. Not only you don't need to change the battery, but when you get rid of your car, you can reuse the battery. If you remember what I've explained, you can get the used leaf battery to power your home, or to power a football stadium, or to power a headquarters anywhere. The battery after 5 to 6 years will still be usable, and the capacity of the battery will be high enough so that you can reuse the battery. So normally, you don't need to change your battery. In case you have to change your battery, this will have a significant cost. That's very clear.
Charge stations.
The current status on the charge station is that, if I remember well, we are
by 2017 it's around 200 something.
Slightly less than 200. We are at 190 something.
But we expect for 2018 to be around 500.
And there is a clear plan. There is a commitment from the government, the Thai government, to support the rollout of infrastructure throughout the country. And there are some private investors as well, and we are talking to them now, who are very willing to diversify their operation and want to go towards the charging station. But again, charging station is one dimension, and it's very dependent on the way you want to use the car. If you want to use the car to travel throughout Thailand, this is an important parameter, for sure. But if you would use your car mainly in the city, charging station is important in your mind, but in the reality would be very, very minimal in terms of importance. However, what we need to do is to give a reinsurance to the customer that he will have a charging solution. And we think that the most important charging solution would be at home. We still have few questions to answer. If we take, for instance, condominiums, that's raising some questions. But charging station across Thailand, there is a plan. This will expand a lot, but that's still not, I think, should not be a main blocker for the customer.
So any constraints to produce electric cars in Thailand?
We've not announced any production of electric car in Thailand, but we just got the confirmation of the BOI by the beginning of July that they validated our application to produce some EV derivative powertrain. And I presented one, if you remember, in the presentation. So that's going to come very soon. Now there is a limitation also in terms of producing EV powertrain in Thailand, because there are limitations with the suppliers, for instance. So the change the industry is going through is a major change, and we will need to have an holistic approach and a holistic change in order to be able to produce EV vehicles in Thailand. But that's probably going to happen relatively quickly.
Gentleman in the back.
Yeah. Winston Dung from Singapore Thai Chamber of Commerce. With the Toyota, which is in the forefront of electric cars and also the hybrid cars, do we have the strategies? What's the strategy to rebrand, to brand the Nissan to be to snatch some of the market shares that they are taking?
Toyota is at the forefront of the hybrid technology. Yes, they were one of the first to come in the market. Electric vehicle, we could debate, but Nissan's got a very clear objective, and that's a strategic pillar of our overall approach at the company. We will go with electrification. And again, electrification does not necessarily mean only full battery EV. Electrification means derivative on powertrain using electrification as the center. And if we look, we don't need to rebrand our car. Leaf is a brand in itself, and Leaf is the best-selling EV in the world. And e-Power, which is today available only in Japan, will become an icon of the Nissan Intelligent Mobility. Just to give you an example, e-Power was launched on the Note, which is a car which is available in Thailand. After a few months, after the launch of Note e-Power became the best-selling car in Japan. Not in its segment, or the best-selling car in Japan. So it gives us confidence in the relevance of the technology, and combining electric powertrain and internal combustion engine to charge the battery, and only to charge the battery, is definitely the direction we want to take in the company. And that's e-Power.
Right.
Yes, I'm wondering whether the interaction between the batteries in your cars and building level solar energy is important here or not. You can have building level solar energy with batteries to back up your supply. You're talking of charging, of giving electricity back from the batteries during the day, your battery, and taking it back from the grid at night. Could you comment on the economics of all that? Is this an important factor or not? Is it going to be much better if you have a wide use of solar energy at building level, or doesn't it really matter to you?
But the way you produce the energy to the car is one direction. If in a country like Thailand, for instance, solar energy would be definitely a very good solution. If you have the possibility to have your own solar panel, charge your car throughout this solution, and one day, if it's available, get power back to the grid, selling your energy, then the business model would probably be very interesting. On an industrial dimension, on our side, for instance, solar panel is definitely something which could be of very high interest. So as an individual, I think this is something that can be looked at, but I don't know. At industrial level, definitely there is a big interest to
But
go
you
that
haven't
way.
studied the economics of it yet? Whether it is going to make a big difference, or
We are looking at it.
looking at the economic. Okay, thanks. Yeah.
Do you have an approximate price for the sale of the Leaf in Thailand when you launch it?
I do, but I can't disclose it now. But you will get to know it very, very soon.
Yeah, so mine falls with the same question more or less. So you didn't mention that infrastructure was on its way as well, with all the charging stations we put in place. But where do we stand in terms of incentives from the government to actually encourage the consumer to actually buy those electric vehicles? As we can see that in Europe, there's a lot of tax incentives and so on that has been provided to really boost this market.
Yes, in Europe it's depending a lot from one country to another.
Of course.
We have some countries where there are a lot of incentives towards the final customer. and there are countries where there is no or much lower incentive. One thing which is clear is that when we look at what happened in Europe, the countries where the incentive to the customer was existing helped growing the total market for EV much quicker than in the countries where there was no incentive, which that looks like a no-brainer, but that's a reality backed up by the fact. Knowing this, it does not mean that the countries where there is no incentive are not selling any battery. It's not the case. If you take Eastern Europe, for instance, there is no incentive towards the final customer, but there is still a market for electric vehicles. Because electric vehicle and the business case on electric vehicle is very interesting for some people and particularly for some companies. Now the Thai government, they have made a decision and they said, we don't think that the Thai market requires incentive towards the final customer. So their stance is very clear. They gave some incentive towards the manufacturer at an industrial level to try and develop the production and the technology locally.
Right.
But they've decided not to go to the customer incentive at that point in time.
Very interested in autonomous vehicles. How long do you think it will be feasible to run them in Thailand, in Bangkok? Because it's okay, you have lane discipline in Japan, Europe. In Thailand, I can't see it coming for 10 years.
I told you there are a lot of technologies available. Thailand is a challenge because
It's a challenge.
Thailand not only, but many countries in Asia are a challenge because you don't have lanes on the road always. You have a lot of two-wheelers going a bit everywhere. You have different regulations. Sometimes you can turn left at the red lamp, sometimes you cannot. You have localization of the red lamp, which is a bit different from one place to another. Sometimes it's before, sometimes it's after. This is raising a lot of challenge, but those challenges will be overcome. And I'm ready to bet you that the technology will be available before 10 years.
I'll take a bet with you.
You mentioned earlier that you haven't decided whether you want to manufacture the EV car in Thailand or not, right? I think I've seen that.
I've said we've not communicated.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was gonna ask whether what was the implication. So I guess in terms of what's the implication to the supply chain in Thailand right now? Because now it has a really complete supply chain for a very traditional car, right? So what do you think is lacking and what has to be developed?
Well, I touched upon very shortly earlier on, but I think there is a need to have an adjustment in many suppliers, and today we have some very straightforward. There are some major suppliers on batteries which are not present in Thailand. If you want to manufacture batteries, you'd rather have some suppliers providing you with cells, etc., etc. So there are many changes which are required to be able to produce full battery EV in Thailand, but I don't think it's impossible. It's just at the end of the day, it's business, and if we can find proper business from the final manufacturer, from the supplier, and have a proper justification to come and launch it in Thailand, that's going to happen. That's for sure.
From a commercial vehicle and off-highway vehicle perspective, do you think, I know I spoke to BMW on this and a couple of others as well, who are, there's varying timescales between the autonomy of passenger cars and similarly the electrification of passenger cars and commercial vehicles and off-highway vehicles, but they're still pushed towards it. Do Nissan have any kind of timescales in place where they think, okay, if this works, then we'll push it onto CV and off-highway?
We already have an electric vehicle, which is a commercial car in Europe and in the US, which is based on a van.
Yeah.
It's called the ENV 200.
And size-wise, is that like a transit size or?
It's yes, it's very close to a transit. It's very close to Renault Traffic.
Yeah.
So that's a van middle size.
How about with the larger vehicles like your trucks, off-highway vehicles in particular? Any kind of shout on that?
Possibilities. I can't comment a lot on this, and on top of that, we are not the main player in this market on our side. But the technology will not necessarily be drastically different. If you look, if technology is available on the passenger car, technology would probably be available on the commercial vehicle relatively easily, and the interest of autonomous drive on the commercial vehicle is even much wider.
And
much wider.
Similarly, in terms of the payback into the grid, if you're looking at solar panels and that side of things as well, with a vehicle of that size, if you're gathering that much power during the day and then you can put back into the grid, the commercial value there is quite significant as well.
Yeah, there is probably a business. There is probably a business case to put together.
Any more? Looks like you've exhausted them. I think the one thing that I will find very interesting in all of this, if I'm still around, of course, is the status element in Thailand. If you look at this building, there are a lot of people who come to work here in their cars and they park downstairs in the garage. So there's an opportunity for somewhere to be created where electric cars could be charged. But if you look at the managers or the CEOs, they all get driven. They come with a driver. The driver drops them off at the front door. They come into the building. What the driver does then, they don't care about. I'll be interested to see when electric autonomous vehicles are available, what happens to the drivers? I have this vision of the drivers being sat there doing nothing because the person in the back can't manage without a driver because it's the status that goes with it. But it'll be interesting to see. That was a wonderful talk. I could go on listening to and watching videos and seeing cars doing things like this all night long. But thank you all for coming, but most of all, thank you to Antoine.
Thank you very much.
And you're free, obviously, to have some more food and some more wine if you want to, or to disappear.
You sat there and I sat there.
Thank you for coming.
After you, Chris. Thank you. You're welcome.
I can't remember what we said. Still around then, right?
Oh, sorry.
So far, about 5 months this year.
Also, Brussels. 6 years. Very strong things.
I've never noticed anything that I've only
Brussels sounds interesting. Architecture.
No, it's not a great city.
Give me someone else's Okay, so what is that about? Okay, we provide security marking asset based with high value companies.
What is research on this?
Your company will have that's your. Do you have head office and then so they might be using old systems, spreadsheets, labeling it by non-tangible labels. What we do is we provide different levels of security marking, labeling, barcodes, anti-theft, anti-burglary, reduce burglary by 50%. Can I send my email to you, sir, and you pass it on to the relevant could I send it to you, Stefan? Sometimes you push it forward to somebody Okay, yes. All right, okay, worth the try. Thanks very much. Yeah, so we just not far from the central bank now. We're just 1 kilometre outside the bank. So when I do immigration, etc., I go down to immigration now. I don't have to do no, but you. Nice, yeah, it was interesting, wasn't it? That interesting. I mean, there's a good chance that upon the city going, obviously, if we're looking at a new car and it leaves out at that time, we would look at the cost Hey, nice meeting you. See, you probably see you as another function. I met one of your Thai Indian guy. What's his name? I met Richie, yes, that's the guy. Andrew Biggs. Andrew Biggs how are you? Fireside chat, yeah. I'm surprised nobody's many people. I didn't know I was going to be, but yeah. But it's so interesting. It was sort of thrown at me at the last minute. They had to announce, I mean, it was free to members. I wasn't a member then, so I paid. And it was free to members, and they couldn't even get it. They were so good. I
never know how to sort this card out. So I put one in one pocket.
And then, like,
Thank you.
Waterproof and the US look at materials, they fail after 9 months. Ours can last 5 to 10 years. And do a lot of warehouse where the local material fails, big companies
I always think that Thailand misses an opportunity because there are so many houses, so many new buildings, so many condos. You could make it a condition of any new build that you have to have solar panels. Or even solar gas, you know, the windows. And you would say, so much energy.
Thailand is hot weather, right? And this is we have a lot of energy.
Oh, you've got so much energy here compared to, say, the UK.
Too busy with the politics.
True. True. Anyway, good to meet you both. All right. Right. Well, we don't allow our chairman to be there as well as that.
Not every day.
We'll see.
Yeah, but earlier, there are a few old one they really retire. Those times I met the Antoine. We set up, because we started with nothing, from zero. That's why we stayed for 10 years to build up. Now we have our own office. You're still renting this, right? Are you?
Yes, we rent this. Yes,
we never rent, we buy.
Sorry.